She lost $1,500 a month for years. Not because she made a mistake. Not because she didn't qualify. She lost it because her husband decided to wait. On paper, that decision sounds irresponsible. Maybe even selfish. Why would anyone walk away from $1,500 a month when retirement is already tight? But here's the part that doesn't make sense at first. That same decision may have left her better off by about $90,000. And the truth is, most couples looking at this situation would have done the exact opposite, which is exactly why so many people get this wrong. Because in Social Security, the decision that feels safest in the moment is often the one that costs you the most later. He passed away at 75, not unexpectedly, not dramatically, just one of those quiet endings that doesn't feel significant in the moment, but changes everything after. She lived on. 5 more years. 10. Then 20. She made it to 90. And somewhere in that long stretch of years, the decision they made back in their 60s started to reveal what it was really doing. Because after he was gone, one number became the only number that mattered. Not what they could have collected together, not what they missed early on, but what she would have to live on. Alone. And because he delayed his benefit, that number was about $2,000 higher every single month. Over time, that gap added up to roughly $90,000. But if you rewind back to the moment they made that decision, it didn't look like a gain. It looked like they were giving money away. Because in real time, it didn't feel like a strategy. It felt like loss. Every month that passed, there was $1,500 they could have had, and didn't. No deposit. No check. Nothing. And the hardest part wasn't the math. It was the waiting. She was already in her mid-60s, old enough to qualify, close enough to full retirement age to know what she should be receiving. But because he hadn't filed yet, her benefit didn't exist. On paper, she was eligible. In reality, she was getting $0, and if he decided to delay all the way to 70, she wouldn't see a single dollar until 72. That's years of watching money you're entitled to never show up. That's years of second-guessing the plan. At some point, this stops feeling like patience and starts feeling like a mistake. And that's where most couples break, because the pressure to take the money now becomes stronger than the logic of waiting. But what most people don't realize is that this entire situation is built on a rule they've misunderstood from the beginning. Most people think they understand spousal benefits. One spouse worked, the other didn't. So the lower-earning spouse gets 50%. Simple. Except that's not what actually happens. That 50% isn't based on what the higher earner is receiving. It's based on what they would receive at full retirement age. In their case, his full retirement age benefit was $3,000. So the maximum she could ever receive as a spousal benefit was $1,500. Not 50% of whatever he chose to claim. Not 50% of a delayed amount. Just $1,500 adjusted depending on when she files. And here's where it gets more expensive. If she claims that benefit before her own full retirement age, it's reduced permanently. And the reduction on a spousal benefit is actually larger than the reduction on a personal benefit. So now the decision isn't just about waiting. It's about locking in a lower number for the rest of your life. And yet, even understanding this doesn't solve the bigger problem. Because knowing how much you can receive doesn't mean you're allowed to receive it yet. This is the rule that turns confusion into frustration. Because even if you understand the numbers, you still might not get anything. Spousal benefits don't just depend on eligibility. They depend on timing. Specifically, the higher-earning spouse has to file first. Until that happens, the spousal benefit simply doesn't exist. So in her case, she could be 64, 65, even 66, fully qualified on paper, and still receive $0. Not reduced, not delayed, just nothing. And the longer he waits, the longer that zero continues. If he delays to full retirement age, she waits. If he delays to 70, she could be waiting until 72 before seeing her first dollar. This is where the plan starts to feel unfair, because now it's not just about how much she gets, it's about whether she gets anything at all. And if you think having your own benefit fixes this problem, It changes things, but not in the way most people expect. At this point, most couples feel the pressure. So let me ask you something honestly. If you were in her position, watching $1,500 a month go by without touching it, would you still wait, or would you take the money now just to stop the feeling of losing it? There's no obvious answer here. So I'm curious, would you choose now or later? Now here's where things get even more misleading. Because what if the lower-earning spouse actually has their own benefit? Let's say the husband's full retirement age. Benefit is $2,800, and the wife has her own benefit of $800. At first glance, it seems like she should be able to stack those. Her $800 plus some portion of his. But that's not how it works. Spousal benefits don't stack. They top off. So the system looks at her benefit, compares it to 50% of his, which is $1,400, and then fills the gap. No more. No less. Now let's say she decides to file early at 62. Her personal benefit drops to $560. Years later, when he finally files, she gets an additional $600 as a spousal top-off. That brings her total to $1,160. Not $1,400, and not even close to what most people would expect. Now flip it. Let's say she waits. Her personal benefit grows to $992 by age 70, but her total benefit still caps at $1,400, which means all that waiting doesn't increase her total income at all. And that's the part that surprises people the most. Because here, waiting doesn't just delay money. It can become completely pointless. Underneath all of this is a limit most people never notice. It doesn't matter how long you wait. It doesn't matter how much your own benefit grows. A spousal benefit has a ceiling. In this case, that ceiling is $1,400, 50% of the higher earner's full retirement age benefit of $2,800. And once you hit that number, that's it. There's no bonus for patience, no extra reward for waiting until 70. So while the higher earner's benefit can keep increasing with delay, the spousal benefit stays frozen, which creates a strange imbalance. One person's decision keeps gaining value over time, while the other person's benefit stops moving entirely. And if you don't see that clearly, you might wait longer than you should, not because it helps, but because you assume it does. And this is the part almost no one focuses on until it's too late. When one spouse passes away, the rules change instantly. You don't keep both benefits. You don't average them. You don't get a partial combination. The surviving spouse keeps the higher benefit, and the lower one disappears. Completely. So in their case, everything eventually came down to one number, his, because no matter what she received while he was alive, that income would vanish the moment he was gone. And what replaced it would depend entirely on how he chose to file. This is what people call the widow trap. Income drops. Taxes can rise. Medicare costs can increase. And suddenly, the same household has to function on a single stream of income. That's why his decision to delay mattered more than it seemed. Because even though it cost them $1,500 a month early on, it created a larger, more stable income for the person who would have to live the longest. And when you look at it that way, the decision stops being about optimization. It becomes about protection. So if you go back to the beginning, it didn't look like a smart decision. It looked like they were giving up $1,500 a month for no reason. It looked like hesitation, like missed opportunity. But the truth is, they weren't optimizing for the years they had together. They were optimizing for the years one of them would have to live alone. And that's the part most people never think about. In Social Security, the real question isn't how much you can get. It's how long that number needs to last. Because eventually, one of those two benefits disappears, and what's left behind becomes everything. So the next time you think about taking the money early, ask yourself a different question. Are you maximizing income today, or protecting the version of your life that comes after everything changes?